After a very long offseason, it's finally time. The college football season is only a few days away, and I'm going to show you guys my preseason rankings for this year. I'm going to upload a video every single week with these rankings. We're going to get into every single team. I'm going to talk about why I have them, exactly where they're at starting the season, what they're missing, what they lost, what came back, everything. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay guys, so here's my top 25 preseason rankings, starting off with the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 1. They went insane in the transfer portal, picking up probably the best talent in the portal out of everybody this cycle, especially with their top transfer, Caleb Downs, safety, coming from Alabama. Then running back Quinshon Judkins coming from Ole Miss. Those two are game changers in their own. But then they also added a new center, Seth McLaughlin, which also came from Alabama. He's a really good center other than the snapping issues, but we'll see if he's changed that. And one of the most important ones, a new quarterback in Will Howard coming from Kansas State. I think he's going to be a game changer for them. He can run the ball, he can pass, and once he gets acclimated in the system, he hasn't got to do much for this team to be amazing. But the main reason I have them number 1 is because of the production that they return. They return basically everyone on defense and a lot on offense. This team is super talented and very veteran, and that's the thing. Veteran teams usually end up winning championships. Michigan did that last year, even though they cheated, which there's going to be some update coming out about that. I was reading it on X, but we're just going to have to see. Next up, coming in my number 2 spot is the Georgia Bulldogs. You can honestly go either way with them in Ohio State. They bring back a lot of production, but to me, they have more questions than Ohio State does, and hear me out. Ohio State's entire defense basically came back and added the best player in the transfer portal. Georgia's defense did not. Their defense is going to be really good this year, but I still have questions about their defense, especially their cornerbacks. I don't think their cornerbacks are as good as they used to be, and I think that's just one of those areas where they're going to struggle against really good receivers, especially in the SEC or if they eventually play Ohio State. And then even looking at the offense, Ohio State's biggest weakness is the offensive line right now and their quarterback play. The offensive line seems to be coming along, and the quarterback play from Will Howard is going to be decent. Carson Beck is going to be a lot better in my opinion, but as a unit, I still think Ohio State is going to be a better team. They have the better running backs as well versus Georgia. Georgia is going to be a passing team for one of the first times in existence this year, so they're going to be passing with a good defense. And to me, how veteran Ohio State is, they're just better than Georgia by hairs. But moving on, after Georgia, I have the Oregon Ducks. Oregon has put together a really good team for this year. They've been doing great in the recruiting trail as well. Dan Lanning is showing he knows what he's doing. But my main question for Oregon is they have to win big games, because last year they lost their 2 biggest games, and both against the same team, Washington. They went to the playoff and they got boat raced by Michigan. If Oregon is gonna compete in the Big Ten, they have to win big games. But other than that, this team is really solid. They bring in the quarterback of Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel, to run that offense. They have a 1,000-yard back returning. Their defense is going to be really good. I know that their DBs are also really good, and they have 2 amazing receivers in Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson. And not gonna lie, I honestly had Texas above Oregon until recent. With Texas, it's the whole CJ Baxter thing. They had 2 running backs get hurt, and that team is just a little depleted. I think Oregon on offense and defense are just a little bit better than Texas, especially defensively in my opinion. The main thing about Texas is Quinn Ewers making a step forward, being able to win and be consistent for that team, because they're down 2 really good running backs. And they did get a lot of transfers on the offense. They had Isaiah Bond and Nye Black coming from Alabama. So I think they're going to be good in the passing game, but it's the rushing game that I'm a little worried about with Texas now. And on the defense, it's their defensive line and the secondary that still has question marks. They lost 2 defensive linemen to the draft, so we're going to see how they replace that. And then that secondary has been a suspect even since last year. They have to improve if they're going to make it far this season. Then running on my top 5, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban retires, and in comes Kalen DeBoer as the new head coach of the Tide. They bring back a lot of key pieces as well as losing a lot of key pieces. They lost both their wide receiver and tight end, and then the best player on their roster, especially on the defense, in Caleb Downs. So my main worries with this team is really their secondary. How is the secondary going to play in SEC? And when they do, or if they do make the playoff, how is it going to fare at that time? Because I do think that they're going to have good linebacker play and a good defensive line, but that secondary is very suspicious for me. The offense as well. Jalen Milroe is back. He has accuracy problems when it comes to the mid-range throws. He is an amazing deep ball thrower and obviously just an amazing athlete in general, but there's more to playing the quarterback position than those two things. You have to make the short yardage throws. You have to be accurate short yardage. He's going to have a lot of time back there. Their offensive line is going to be really good this year, and they're going to have a couple good running backs in the backfield. So Alabama has their chance. I think they're going to be more of a ground and pound team, but when it comes to passing the ball, Jalen Milroe has to take a step forward. Next up in number 6, we have the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is doing great things with this team. Their whole production comes back as well. This is pretty similar to Ohio State and very similar to Georgia. They bring back their quarterback Jackson Dart. They do lose Quinshon Judkins as their running back, but they're going to have to replace him, and I think they will. They have good wide receivers on the outside for Jackson Dart as well, along with a good defense. They got some transfers in from Texas A&M to really bolster up that defense, because throughout Lane Kiffin's entire time coaching, he has not had a good defense. That's been the problem with Lane Kiffin, and he does take it seriously. He's making changes to make it better, and I really think Ole Miss is going to have a solid year. They could have another 10-11 win season. Then right after Ole Miss, I have the Michigan Wolverines. Now, I know a couple people are going to be shocked by it. A lot of people's rankings I've seen have Michigan outside the top 10. Now, since they won the national championship, there's no way I could put them outside the top 10 unless they lost literally everybody, but they do return a lot of production on defense. One of the best cornerbacks in the league right now, a good safety, an amazing interior defensive line. Mylan Graham is the real deal. And honestly, I forgot who the other one was, but they're both insane. That defense is going to be ridiculous. But looking at the offense, I don't think this offense is going to be good at all. Everyone seems to think that Donovan Edwards is going to carry Michigan and the whole load this season. He's going to be a good running back, but I do not see him being as good as Blake Corum was. We have seen in the past with Donovan Edwards that he just does not have that explosive ability unless big holes are opened up for them. Now, I think Michigan's going to have a very good offensive line as well, but I think they're going to play some defensive lines that match up with them or could possibly be even better. And at that point, I don't think Michigan's going to be able to run the ball, and they definitely don't have that many options to pass to this season as well, other than Colston Loveland. Everyone seems to think he's going to be the best tight end in the country this year. I don't think so. Maybe top 5, but I don't think he's going to be the best. And then on top of that, they don't even know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Everyone seems to think it's going to be Alex Orji, but he can't complete a pass to save his life, I heard. But he is an incredible athlete. I guess we're going to have to see. This team is going to be tested really early. They play Texas week 2, so we're really going to find out what Michigan's about. Then right behind Michigan, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. They also return a decent amount, especially their quarterback, Drew Allar. I'm looking for him to make a big step this year. Last year, his numbers were very good, but when he played against good defenses, he shrunk, and he was very inaccurate against Michigan and Ohio State. He played absolutely awful. But if he takes a step forward, he has really good running backs. He still has Katron Allen. He still has Nick Singleton. And then they added an Ohio State wide receiver in Julian Fleming, one of the best receivers in the country as well. This team does not have an excuse other than to go 11-1. They might lose to Ohio State, but then again, that game's at home. They have a legitimate shot to go 12-0 this year. Their defense, they're losing a little bit, but honestly, I think it's going to be good. I think their secondary is going to be okay. I think their defensive line is going to be good along with their linebacker play. Also, the sole reason I have them behind Michigan is because they haven't beaten Michigan or Ohio State in who knows how long. It's been a while, but Penn State has constantly showed that they're the third best in the division / conference, and I'm just waiting for them to make a step before I put them above those two teams. After them at number 9, I have the Utah Utes. Now, they bring back Cam Rising. You guys remember how good Cam Rising was in 2022. They should have won the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. He put on a clinic. Now he's coming back from a year-long injury, so no one knows how he's going to perform, but he is going to be deadly accurate, and he's going to be a leader for that team. And if Utah can avoid more injuries, especially coming from him or anyone else on their team, they're going to be very, very dangerous. And I believe that they will win the Big 12 if he continues to play. They bring back a really good running back. They have an amazing defense as always. This team is destined. I mean, this is like his 5th or 6th year. I don't know for Cam Rising, but he's like a super senior at this point. And I feel like Utah has a chance to get one of those top 4 seeds in the playoff. Then rounding out my top 10, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now this is also going to come to a shock to a lot of people. They have Notre Dame in their top 5, and to me, I just don't understand that. I know they also return a lot, like their whole defense and their offense is practically the same. They have a new quarterback in Riley Leonard. But my main thing with Notre Dame is just every year they have like really good teams, but they always disappoint. And I'm not going to overhype this team. I'm going to leave them where I think they belong until they show that they can do something with it. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They have to win the big games, which they haven't for a long time now. They have a new quarterback, which is injury prone, so they have to protect him and they have to be able to do their jobs correctly. Marcus Freeman needs to get this team to 11 wins to get to the playoff. I don't care what anyone thinks, they need to be 11-1 to make the playoffs. I don't think a 10-2 Notre Dame is going to get in unless someone else really drops the ball and they lose like by a lot of points at the end of the year. And that's just what happens when you're not in a conference. Like, I'm sorry. And then moving on to my 11th spot, I have Oklahoma State. I really like Oklahoma State. Again, another team that brings back a lot of production. They're bringing back their quarterback for his like 7th or 8th year at this point. They're bringing back their running back, which is the best running back in the country, and Ollie Gordon. They have good playmakers on the outside, but their defense is atrocious. I know it's probably going to improve after last year, but again, until I see those improvements, I cannot put this team in the top 10. Their offense by themselves could be in the top 10, but the defense is just so bad. I have to leave them out of it. They let so many teams score at will on them, especially Texas. Every time Texas touched the ball, it was a touchdown. So I am not on the hype train for Oklahoma State. I know a lot of other people. I've watched a lot of other videos. This team just isn't there yet. Let's see if their defense has improved, and then we could put them where they truly belong. And then right behind them, I have Kansas State sitting at the 12th spot. They bring a new quarterback, Avery Johnson, which they're super high on. They put all their chips in this basket. They basically told Will Howard, like, hey, we want to start the new guy. Find a job somewhere else. We don't want him to leave, so we're going to let him start so he doesn't have a chance to leave, just because they believe in this man so much. And look, this team is going to be good. They're going to have a solid offense, especially in the run game. And their defense, Kansas State's defense is always really good. They're a well-balanced team, and I think if he performs, if Avery Johnson is able to put together a really good year, this team could also be 10-2, playing Utah for the Big 12 championship. Then right after Kansas State, I have the Missouri Tigers. They bring back their quarterback, Brady Cook, along with their star wide receiver, Luther Burden. Those two are going to have an insane year. Now, the only problems I have with Missouri is their defense. They lost a lot of production on the defense last year. They played against Ohio State. They went out of their minds in that game. But Missouri has to replace all of that production, basically. And that alone is the reason I could not put them in the top 10. Kind of similar to Oklahoma State, except I do believe Missouri is going to have a better defense than Oklahoma State, but their offense isn't going to be as potent because in the run game, they lost Cody Schrader, which was their really good back to the NFL. And then we have FSU, Florida State sitting at 14 and LSU at 15. Now, these two are also interchangeable in my head. Like, I have conflicting feelings about both these teams. Florida State loses a lot when it comes to their defense and their offense. Both of their really good receivers, gone. Their quarterback, gone. Their running back, gone. Now, they did replace them with decent talent. They have a transfer for Alabama at the running back position, and then they have a transfer from Clemson/Oregon State in DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback, but no one notable in the wide receiver room. So I guess we're just going to have to find out when it comes to that. Their defense, I think, is still going to be good this year. They bring back a little bit, but they lost Jared Verse and a couple other key pieces. So we're just going to have to see. Their first game is on Saturday at noon against Georgia Tech. And this team is honestly just a wild card to me, as the same as LSU. Now, the difference with LSU for me, their defense is absolutely garbage. And I'm speaking from last year. I'm not talking about this year. I think they're going to be a little bit better, but they didn't do anything to address how bad that defense was last year, other than bringing in a new defensive coordinator, which I feel like they should have had a couple transfers in there as well. They do have Nussmeier at quarterback. I think he's going to be pretty good. He's going to be one of those accurate quarterbacks that doesn't really like to run the ball or move, so he's not going to be like Jaden Daniels, but he's going to be an accurate quarterback. And I think they have decent wide receiver play. Even after losing Malik Neighbors, LSU usually breeds really good wide receivers. And then their offensive line is also very good, so that's going to give him time to throw the ball. I think this team's going to be better than what others think, but I'm just not 100% sure. But one thing I do want to say, I've been getting this feeling a lot. If this team has a very much improved defense to where it's just average to good, and the offense, they start clicking on all cylinders, they find a really good running back, along with rhythm in the passing game, watch out for LSU. They could win 10, 11 games if those things happen. Now, if not, they're going to win 8, 9 max. But moving on from them, at 16, I have Clemson. Now, with a lot of other people's videos, I've been seeing Clemson up and down the rankings all the way to like 11, 12, and then people leaving them like in the 20s. Now, I have them at the 16th spot, just because I do think they're really good on defense. They have an amazing front seven. Their front seven is really good every single year, but they do return a lot of production. Now, the secondary has some questions. I think it'll be okay. Nothing special, but that front seven, it's going to be hard to run the ball on this team. And then their offense. They also bring back a lot of people. They do lose their running back to the NFL, but the backup is still there. Phil Maffa, he's going to be getting a majority of the load this year. Along with Cade Klubnik, he has to step up. He makes way too many errors, interceptions, fumbles. This team had so many turnovers last year. That is what killed them. That's why they lost 28-7 versus Duke. He has to play better. This is the second year with Garrett Riley as the offensive coordinator. I do think they'll take a step forward. I just don't know how good that step forward is going to be. Honestly, I feel like Clemson can be an 8-4 team to a 10-2 team. We're just going to have to find out. And another team we're going to have to find out, the Miami Hurricanes. They're at the 17th spot for me. Honestly, this team is the team that I'm going to pick to win the ACC this year. I think they're very talented. They have a good defense, and they're going to have a good offense. Cam Ward came in from Washington State. I think he was one of the best quarterbacks in the portal. And I think him paired with Xavier Restrepo is going to be a lethal connection for that team. I really think that they could be well-rounded and the most well-rounded team in the ACC. That's why I think they can go. But with their track record with Mario Cristobal, he does not really develop his players. He always gets in the way of his team moving forward. Same with Miami. They have never won an ACC championship ever. That's why this team is a wild card for me. Now, everything looks good on the outside, but once they start playing games, if we don't see that dominance that we think, I'm a little worried for this team, and that's why I got them at the 17th spot. And then moving on after them is another team with a bunch of question marks for me, Tennessee. Tennessee, they have one of the best defensive linemen in Pierce, but again, that secondary, I don't think it's that good. And when it comes to the offense, they do have a decent offense. They have a brand new quarterback in Nico Yamaleva. This season goes by him. If he's as good as Tennessee fans have been talking about, they can be a really good team this year. They can also win 10 games. But honestly, he's a freshman. He's playing in the SEC. It's going to be really crazy this year. I think Tennessee will probably win 9 games. My prediction for them is 9-3. And it really depends on how he plays against those really good teams like Alabama and Georgia. And then moving on from them, at 19, we got the Arizona Wildcats. This is the first time I've had them ever in my rankings. They have an amazing quarterback along with another amazing wide receiver. And they're single-handedly going to choose how good this team does this year. Noah Fifita, their quarterback, and McMillan, the wide receiver, their connection has to be amazing. Like, they have to go off this year for Arizona to be good. I believe they could be a really good team. It's just hard to see their defense really improving after last year. The offense as well. But I do believe Noah Fifita can do a lot better. Even after losing their head coach, Jedd Fisch, to Washington, this team is going to be a solid team. And then moving on, rounding out the top 20, we have Oklahoma. Now, my thing with Oklahoma, I think they're going to have a good defense. Again, I see a lot of people hyping up this team, and especially the defense. I don't think the secondary is going to be that good. Now, the front seven, I think, is going to be good, but I definitely think the secondary is a little overrated by some of these other teams. And then they're starting a brand new quarterback after Dylan Gabriel transferred in Jackson Arnold, and we just don't know what we're going to get with Oklahoma. They should have a solid offensive line and decent wide receiver play, but I'm just not 100% sure about them. Again, I have them at 20 for that reason, even behind Arizona, because Arnold was absolutely terrible in their bowl game. So this ranking is solely because of that. If they do not get good play out of him, this team is not going to be good, and they're looking at a 6-6 season. And then next after Oklahoma, we have Louisville sitting at the 21st spot. This team that Jeff Brom has, it can be a dark horse team. Now, they were good last year and they upset Notre Dame. And honestly, I think this year is going to be the same. They have a chance to actually be better. Tyler Shutt is back for another year. Louisville's defense also returned a lot of production. I think they're also going to be good. I think Jeff Brom is this team exactly where they want to be. And honestly, I feel like they can also be 9-3, 8-4 at the lowest. And then at 22, we have NC State. I feel like NC State is always around the 20s at the start of every single season, but they always have like that thing about them. Like they have a really solid defense. They're a well-coached team on both sides of the ball. They're bringing in Grayson McCall, which he is a pretty good quarterback. I don't know how it's going to translate to the Power 4. We're going to have to find out and see. They are a really big question mark when it comes to the offense, but you do know NC State, they're going to have a good defense, and if their offense brings them along, they could possibly win some of these big games. Another team that has a possibility of going 9-3. And speaking about defense, at 23, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, there's only a few things in life that we know exist every single year that are absolutely for sure, and that is Iowa defense. Their defense is going to be really good. Offense is going to be really bad. That's how it's been. That's probably how it's going to be this year. They do have a new offensive coordinator, which is a step in the right direction, but I do think that's going to take at least a year or two for them to actually see some improvements. They do bring K. McNamara back from injury, so if he can have a solid year, I feel like this team could be 10-2 or 11-1. Looking at their schedule, their defense can play them through like all of these games. Their hardest game is against Ohio State. Other than that, they really don't have a lot of challenges. Maybe Nebraska, maybe Wisconsin, but that's it. And the only team I feel like they're 100% going to lose to is Ohio State. They legitimately have a shot of getting to the Big Ten championship game. Then moving on at 24, we have the Kansas Jayhawks. Now the thing with Kansas, they were a team that's all about offense, obviously. With their head coach, Lance Leopold, he has turned this team completely around in terms of offense. They don't have defense. Like, their defense is completely awful, but their offense is absolutely insane. Jalen Daniels, if he plays the entire season, this team's going to be very good. And they have Neal as a backup. He's also a really good option. I feel like if Kansas can have just a semblance of a defense, kind of like LSU, this team can win a lot of games. Now, they did lose their offensive coordinator, Kotelnicki, to Penn State, which I could have mentioned earlier. That's another reason I think Penn State's going to be better, because last year they were just really bad on offense with their whole scheme, and I think they're going to be better because of that. But Kansas, they have an opportunity to have like a top 5 offense in the entire country. But it all depends on if Jalen Daniels is healthy. And finally, rounding out my top 25, I have Virginia Tech, a team that's kind of been disrespected. They bring back the most production out of any team in the country. Out of any team, Virginia Tech brings back the most production. And look, they ended last year on like a 5 or 6 game winning streak leading into this year, and they bring back all of that. And that is including their entire defense and their quarterback. This team is a dark horse. They could do something in the ACC this year. It would not shock me at all if we looked at them as 10-2 or 11-1 at the end of the year with only 1 loss. And the sad thing about it is, I don't see a lot of these other YouTubers or sites that have Virginia Tech in their top 25. And I just feel like a team that ends a season on a 5-6 game winning streak, brings back all their production, if they don't get ranked, like, that is blatant disrespect. Teams that have all this experience and bring back this much, they're gonna be good. They should be the most consistent teams, and I think Virginia Tech is gonna be that. Alright guys, that's gonna be the end of the video. That's my top 25. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Leave a like and comment. Obviously, I missed a few other teams. The teams that come to mind: Nebraska, Wisconsin, both teams that could have a really good year. Nebraska, honestly, with Dylan Raiola starting, they could start this season 7-0 or like 8-1. Obviously, I think they're going to lose to Ohio State, but there's just a lot of other options, and I'm so excited for the season. I'm going to be uploading either Saturday night or Sunday morning every single week, and I bring you guys these rankings. Let me know if you want to see any other videos. Give me video ideas in the comments. With all that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.